Cool. First of all, congrats to the national startup team. I remember the days, 6 years ago, I sat at the same places. Went to Boston, so it was a great experience. And I think what the guys are doing, even the TH Startup Club, is really, really great. So enjoy the experience and looking forward to hear the pitches. For me, the Venture Lab team put a real challenge to me as well. They messaged me and said, Dennis, can you put 10 years, learnings from 10 years entrepreneur into a 15-minute pitch? I was laughing, just asked them if it's 50 or 15. No, they stick to 15. So this was one of the core challenges of the presentation. I hope to cope with that and at least present you some things that hopefully you haven't heard yet from a startup perspective. I'm sure you read a lot of blog posts, you read a lot or viewed a lot of YouTubes from seasoned founders. I hope I catch some points at least that are interesting for you from my personal experience. But who's me in a nutshell? Dennis, one of the founders of Knip of Numbers, one of the rather biggest startups in Switzerland. I have been for 2.5 years on, I would say, a pause spot as a SVP of direct and digital at Ergos, one of the largest insurance carriers in Europe. And back now since about half a year as CEO of Smallpdf, which is a really, really cool product company and a really, really cool team. That's not the 15-minute spell. If you,
we are short on the time.
I know. Yeah. If you want to know my personal standings on the startup table, 2 wins, 1 draw, 1 lose. I'm pretty sure I will make it to 3 wins in a bit, but we might take some time as well. Did 5 to 6, depending on how you want to judge it, financing rounds, raised above 40 million in venture capital. But it always depends on if you're proud of that. I think the startups or the companies are really what it's meant about. Let's get to the 9 learnings or 9 fields. I tried to connect them with personal stories as well, because I think I would have a lot of content for the fuck up nights as well. But that's part of the game, right? So first learning with a personal note to it: ignore evaluations, focus on terms. Why is that? Does it make sense? We always read about these 400, 500 million valuations that are super to read about in the startup news. It's basically related to 2 key terms that you should all take care of in your startup life: raising venture capital, if you want at all raise venture capital. If not, fine as well. Liquidation preferences and veto rights. Had some fun experience with that, good and bad. Hopefully you're not wondering what it's meant about, but happy to explain it. What is a liquidation preference? So when you raise a financing round, let's say, I think the example says 3.5 million for a 10 million valuation. The nitty-gritty things of the contract are what matters in the end. And they matter not because you want to have a high valuation, but they matter in the end because of the outcome of what you have in your pocket after you, for example, sell a company, do another round, do a secondary, whatever you. The liquidation preference basically dictates the payout cycle of a liquidity event of a company. And it's super crucial to you because you're in the end the one that dedicate a lot of time, a lot of effort, usually 5 to 10 years, to building a startup, earning nothing, and you want to get something out of it. So make sure that within the next financing round, you take care of a nice liquidation preference that usually sits in the higher off range and not in the 1x or 3x. What does it mean? If an investor invests, let's say, 3.5 million into your company and you sell it for, the example says 20. If you have a 1x or 3x or 2x or 5x, I've seen everything. It usually means that the investor gets this amount of the invested money that they invested in the company first into their pockets before you are actually paid out. So that's actually a good case. Yeah, if you sell a company for 20 million and you have just one financing round, it's a really, really good case. Usually, you don't have that much in terms of participation of the company. So you imagine a smaller payout, and it really matters. I mean, just in that case, it's a 7 million difference from what you have on your bank account, and it can be the difference between nothing and some 100K for 10 years of work. Just care about it. The second one is veto rights / voting rights. I think it's something that you all anyway have on your agenda. If you do have a complex cap table, if you have multiple investors, you really don't want that small investors or minority investors influence you on your strategic moving, because in the end they own, I don't know, 2 to 5%, whatever it is. And I had the case in the personal experience as well, where they really blocked the financing round, which was for higher valuation. Everything was good, but in the end, they don't want to have that VC on board, and it can kill a company. Yeah, so just make sure that you build kind of a support basis for yourself, even within the cap table, not as well, obviously, in your kind of personal environment, because it just makes sense, and make sure that you at least have the majority of shares or voting rights to the important strategic decisions. I mean, it's clear that if you have financing rounds, you won't own the majority at some point anymore, but make sure you're close to that at least. Second one, venture capital will slow you down. Not related to venture kick, obviously. Why is that? I think there are multiple cases of companies, and you just should reflect to yourself, to the company that you're running, if you are a VC company or not. Because, I mean, the experience from doing several financing rounds is they fucking take time and effort, and you don't have time to do anything else. It's just the financing round, and it's the financing round between 3 and 5 months in a row that you have to focus on that. And that 24 hours a day, specifically if you raise international money, because time difference and everything else. So if you raise VC money, if you want to go on the track and not the kind of more hip, currently sustainable way of being bootstrapped, make sure that at least with that money that you raise, you hire a team that can build the product or the business or do the sales that you are supposed to do in the same time. I think straightforward information, but super crucial. Be aware you won't have time for anything else, not even family, sometimes. Point 3 relates slightly to that. It's one of the really cool experiences now with Smallpdf, and as well before, at least in some times of the Knip times. Going slow, being bootstrapped, behaving differently than the market can sometimes be beneficial. Specifically if you are in all these hype markets. I mean, we've been with Knip, we've been in an insurtech wave #1. Everybody pours money on you. You have like 4 or 5 competitors raising 20, 30 million rounds. You do the same. You're burning money like crazy. I don't know, 2, 3 million burn a month. It's not sustainable, and there will be someone who loses on that way. At the moment where we reflect and be really capital efficient, maybe not grow as fast as the others, but either grow profitable or grow efficient. On the long run, it will be beneficial to you. Why? Pretty simple. If money is out, you need new money. And new money always comes in only when you have a higher valuation as before, or can justify at least a higher valuation than before, because otherwise you will do a down round and it will fuck up your whole company. Specifically if you're a VC kind of forced or VC track company, because venture capital or the funds will not want that to happen. So just even if your ego is big as mine, doing insurtech, doing a hype product, sometimes reflecting, just settling a bit, burning less than the others, sticking to the product, your game plan, your vision, whatever it's going to be, it's totally fine. And I think on the long run, I have some examples of Clark and Tia. I mean, I'm not sure if, Tia for sure is known in Zurich. I think they do it pretty well in the e-scooter game. They're not spending anything currently on marketing. They're just growing organically. And if you look at the numbers, at least from what you hear from the venture capitalists, way up the best unit economics currently. So it pays off. Same for Clark in the InsurTech game. They've been the slowest at the point where 6 years ago I was in the game as well and had that big ego. Currently it's paying off for them and not for me, at least now. Number 4, might sound weird to you, but it's one of the best advices I actually got from the founders. Cash out if you can. In the lifetime of a company, you usually have 1, 2, 3, 4 financing rounds, including the exit. So there is a very limited amount of time where you can actually earn some money on what you're doing. Obviously, if you have a great vision, if everything is going fine and you're on that linear or exponential track towards rolling the world, you won't need that because you will be a billionaire afterwards. If you look at all seasoned founders that actually I met, I talked to, if it's the Get Your Guide guys that, just were an example at the beginning, if it's number 26, if it's whatever, they all cash out in every single financing round. Yeah. It doesn't mean that you need to be a millionaire after cashing out. That's not the reason behind this hint. It's you're investing a lot of time. You're sacrificing yourself, your family, your life towards the company with a more or less unclear outcome. So from the stage of having a product market fit, so raising, between 3 and 5 million in a financing round, at least for tech companies, it makes sense to take just a tiny bit of the money off the table. Because in the end, you don't know what happens. You have Corona, you have something coming up, you have a big competitor buying, a competitor or one of the big tech guys from you, and it might harm the development of the company. So noted, one of the best advices I personally got, cash out if you can. Never trust the startup news. I think it more relates to what you read in the details and how you should interpret it. So I learned along the way, listening to or reading what they are saying, 400 million valuations, I think credit tag, 200 million. If you read in between the lines, if you understand and judge what they're reading based on the fact that there are multiple ways of financing, that there are multiple interpretations on what the press actually is telling you, it might mean something different. Just an example for the credit tech guys, I think they, 2 or 3 years ago, they announced a 200 million round. Everybody was blown away because of 200 million usually means 600 to 800 million valuation. In the end, it was a credit line that they got for the business that they are doing to their B2C customers. So it wasn't at all a financing, but it was promoted as that. Be aware that there are different ways how to finance and that they usually reflect the valuation and everything on the news in a different way. The classic way is primary financing, which is liquidity for the company in the balance sheet. That's really how we call it financing round. But nowadays, a lot of companies do different ways of financing, which will reflect, obviously, the structure, the news, and everything around. Secondary financing is when you buy out shares from existing shareholders. Yeah, so usually the valuation is slightly less than what you see with primary cash, because usually you have less influence in the stocks. They are less worth. You have venture debt that doesn't relate at all to stocks or to ownership in the company. So you can, nowadays, you can get it basically for free. Doesn't relate to valuations. And you have extensions for rounds. So if you read for kind of financing extensions of a round, it's usually a bad sign. Yeah, because the company is not able to raise the valuation in the next round. And they have to either bridge by current existing investors or new investors that come, but for better terms for the investors. Just learn to judge what is read, because in some cases, if you listen or read about your competition, it might differentiate your view on what's happening. One of very bad personal experience is die hard in the US and choose your market wisely. Why do I wrote it there? Personal story, we raised the Series B with Knip of around 20 million with 2 lead US investors with a purpose to go to the US market. Obviously, if you have 2 lead investors from the US, they have a majority of the cap table. And that relates to the second point, they own a lot of the company, they can steer the company. We've been to the US with Knip 3 months, not more. Because it just didn't work out. Yeah, the market was completely different. We had really, really big problems with the regulator. The insurance carriers won't let us in or didn't want to let us in. And we just screwed up $500,000 francs in the US. Was a fun time though. The biggest problem or bigger problem with that is you have 2 shareholders in a company who own more than 15% of the company each, and they steer the company strategically, and you're not in their target market anymore. And usually with VCs, if you're not on the top range of companies that are in their portfolio, so the fund returners, so-called fund returners, they don't give a shit about you. So it brings you problems. Therefore, choose your market wisely. US can still be a super interesting and nice market, as with Smallpdf. Really nice conversions, big customer group. But in the Knip case, no, was not a good deal. 7th one, it's not cool to meet VCs, except venture kick. Why? Just meet with VCs if you really raise money. If you are in the startup news, if you have a cool company, if you fund a cool company that is in the news, you will reach a lot of inbound interest from Index, from Benchmark, from all the great VCs, or even not the great VCs. Most of them do market benchmarking, not searching for investment in the market. Yeah? Be aware of that. If you meet with these VCs, usually it takes an hour of time, you're super excited, you fly to London, I don't know, you fly to New York, everything cool, but if you don't need money, if you don't raise money, really don't waste your time. It's not worth it. In the end, you don't get anything out of their meetings. They will not give you insights of their portfolio, of the companies that they are looking for, or the other companies that they currently look at in the same competition landscape that you are. It just doesn't make sense. Second advice, if there is an associate approaching you, it's nice, but don't talk to them. Yeah. It's not worth the time. If at all, talk with a partner because they decide if they make an investment or not. I think goes by itself. 8th advice, ask for help, not because you're all weak or I'm weak, but because the startup life, the entrepreneur life would somehow change your life and will require you to change on the journey. It's different to lead a company with 2 people or just 2 other founders, build a cool product in like 6 months, and then go with it at the market, raise a, seed round, friends and family round, the 250K. It's different than leading a company with 150 people, having a solid, nice org chart, requiring a clear vision, a clear path, management, and structures. And I'm sure you all are born with the ability to adapt, but that change in like 1 to 2 years of time is just impossible to do without help. So I'm really a fan of personal coaching. I do have a personal coach just to reflect yourself at all the times with the challenges that you face. Just from a, employee perspective, from an investor perspective, it can be general questions. Get mentors or at least build a network with people that are in the field or did what you're trying to do. They usually have some great pieces of advice. You don't need to listen to all of them. You don't need to believe it, everything, but it will help. And for the VCs or the employees that you involve yourself with, just get references as much as you can. It always helps to have a second or third opinion. 10-minute call should solve it. But if the other person really has a feeling of, oh, this might not go well, you get the intention within the call. Last piece of advice, experience, let things and people go. Reflects to the last one. Companies change, people change, requirements change. So it's really not an issue if people that, were the first, second, third employee in a company leave at some point because they want to found their own company. You rather cheer to them and be happy that they really developed within the path of the company than trying to grab them and make them stay because they have to stay. Or if you have the feeling that just a person doesn't fit to the team anymore because they doesn't fulfill the requirements, that's totally fine. It's the nature of a company. It's the nature how things evolve. Everyone is replaceable. It's a bold statement, but maybe not everyone, but 99.999.9 whatever percent. Yeah. So I think that as kind of the 9 learnings in. Hopefully stick to the time. I do have a small ad block, obviously, ad block about Smallpdf, because I think that's at least something I hope you're interested in. There was some job ads at the end. What is Smallpdf? Just in a really, really nutshell, I'm most likely now sticking to what the national team is doing. If you add the visits of the largest Swiss website, which is 20 minutes, and add the visits or visitors of the 10th largest company in Switzerland, which is Swisscom, you have the size of Smallpdf. Yeah. So we are essentially the biggest website built in Switzerland, larger than Zatu, 20 minutes, Swisscom. What are we doing? Pretty straightforward and simple. We started off being a problem solution for PDFs. If you want to compress a PDF, if you want to convert a PDF, if you want to convert to a PDF, then we are the go-to solution for everything. Just Google, we're there, we make you happy. But in the end, I think that's a nice business model, but it's not really scalable and you don't conquer the world with it. So where are we going towards? We're slightly moving towards documents now. We want to really provide a suite for you to don't hassle with paperwork anymore. The mobile app just launched really early. We are developing desktop currently and the extension. So trying to build that ecosystem of like solving your document hassle, not all on PDF, but as well on Google Docs, on text, on RTF files, and syncing all of them across your devices and across your platforms that you use. Not only for B2C, at least in the full state of development, which we did the last 6 years, but in the future as well for B2B clients. So low churn, higher prices, all good for us. And if you're searching for a job, we might be the company to go. So if you want to work at a company who celebrates their yearly targets or reaching the yearly targets of 2019 by going to Sri Lanka for a week with everybody, happy to have your application. There are more jobs to come. We're just updating it now. So yeah, looking forward. Thanks for your time. Thanks for listening and looking forward to hopefully some questions from you.
Thank you very much.